Have you guys heard about Rick and Morty? I don't know what it is. It's some series about pickles or something. I don't know. Oh, Rick and Morty is a 2014 Adult Swim animated show about the crazy old very smart inventor Rick and his sidekick Roberto. This show used to be on the top of the fucking world, man. It was everywhere. Pickles were wriggling, Funkos were popping. People used to believe that watching this show actually makes you smarter. Like, people actually thought that. I don't know. Maybe it's true, and I just don't have high enough IQ to understand it. This show was a breath of fresh air in 2010s, and I won't argue that the first two seasons were pretty great, but around season 4 people realized this show kinda shit now, and people stopped caring that much about it. And I'm not saying it stopped being popular, it just didn't control the world anymore. It sure is trying to stay relevant right now, making some genuinely awful anime that no one gives a shit about, no one cares. But there is a different show now that is making itself a big fan base instead of Rick and Morty, because back in 2020, creator of the show, who will not be named, that guy from Silent Happiness, decided to try to make himself a new money machine and created a new show for Hulu called Solar Opposites. Solar Opposites. Which people did not care at all when it came out. They just thought it was a Rick and Morty clone before even watching it to form an opinion. But now that season 5 has come out, I started seeing people say that this show is actually really great, and more people loving it. And if I'm being honest, I see more people being excited about Solar Opposites than Rick and Morty nowadays. And I wanted to share my thoughts on the show today. Don't worry, it won't be like deep in retrospective on what it did that made Rick and Morty die in agony, and what it did that Solar Opposites is very much alive right now and not dead in agony. It will just be a video I made where I share my thoughts on season 5, some on the previous episodes, and sometimes compared to Rick and Morty. Okay, now let's go with Super Mario that had an intervention in Solar Opposites. Wow, you know, it was connected, that's why I said let's go. This show has a lot of shit to talk about, but I think it makes the most sense to start by talking about the titular Solar Opposites. And if I'm being honest, their stuff was my favorite part of the season. Yeah, I like it more than The Wall this season. Not that The Wall has gotten worse, we'll get to it, but the main adventures just became so much better than the previous seasons. When Solars first appeared, I thought they were just gonna be assholes for the entire series that don't do anything moral. Which I was fine with, because I thought they were pretty darn funny, so I didn't mind them being awful people. But as the series progressed, even though they are still kinda bad people, their relationship between each other have gotten so much better and more wholesome. Especially between Terry and Corvo, because in this year's Valentine's special, they got married and are just acting like extremely in love couple, which I just love to see. Their relationship shines the most in the second episode of the season, the never-ending honeymoon story, where Terry and Corvo were pushing the Earth away from the sun so week will last longer, so they can enjoy their honeymoon more. And later in this episode, it was revealed that Corvo was scared that when honeymoon will end, Terry will stop loving him, and Terry then just swears he will forever love him. Man, I love this moment as well as the whole episode. It was sweet as fuck and had a cool sci-fi premise to wrap it all up. Other episode that was sweet and had a cool premise was episode 8, the What If Machine, where the Solars wanted to use the What If Machine for fancies and stuff to see different versions of the world, but they see that the button already was pressed, meaning that this world is actually a what if version of the real world, which they later learn about that it was clicked by their actual space mission leader to see how they would end up without him. And when they learn that if he didn't do that, they would finish the mission in an instant, Terry and the replicants ask Corvo if he wants to unpress the button and make them go back to the reality where they come from, because they complete the mission there. And Corvo always wanted to complete the mission. But Corvo doesn't do that and instead wants to live this life that he loves, having this little family and stuff. I know it's kinda confusing, especially when I explained it, but I still adored this episode and how it was sweet as well as creative. I could talk more about the characters, like the Live Die Repeat episode where Terry realizes that he doesn't want to spend time with someone exactly like him all the time and that he wants to spend it with Corvo even though they are solar opposites of each other. You see what I did there? But I think you get the gist of it. Characters are peaking this season. I think Jessie is my favorite now. She's so funny this season. I like her little obsession with soda flavors. That was relatable. Oh yeah, the humor. What about it? Is it good? Yes, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't, I wouldn't make this video. If you watch the show, you know that there's one type of jokes they like to tell a lot. Pop culture references. And usually, that would get annoying. Look no further than Family Guy, where half of the cutaways is that it's something you know, and that's basically it. That's the whole joke. And when you don't know what it's referencing, then you're just stuck there for like a minute, wondering what the fuck is happening because you don't understand it. But I think pop culture references work in Solar Opposites. It's almost always just throwaway jokes, so if you didn't understand it, boom, already next joke. And if you didn't understand this one, boom, already next joke. Repeat over and over again. The exception was maybe Jingle All The Way special they did a while back, but I hated this movie as a kid, so I don't care, I found it funny. These jokes also make sense in the show, because we are watching a family of aliens learn about Earth through television and movies, so it makes sense for them to make pop culture references. And also, the jokes are funny, so boom, I defended the culture of the pop. But not counting the pop culture references, the show does still have a lot of funny moments. One of my favorite episodes this season was Sci-Fi Rollerblade, which is about Corvo wanting to fight replicants bullied out, and for the half of the episode he just comes up with wacky schemes to beat him, and always losing, in a very Wile E. Coyote way, with Looney Tunes ass music and no words whatsoever. This was a really funny setup, but this episode also had a very fun B-plot too, with Terry chasing Pupa that was chewing some very important and dangerous glowing orb that can destroy the universe, telling Pupa to drop it throughout the whole thing. And he just has a fucking meltdown at the end and starts crying, realizing that he actually trained Pupa to react, to give it, not drop it. And when Pupa gave him the orb, he started chewing it, which was really fucking stupid and funny. But easily my favorite joke this season was the entire episode of the Solar Opposites do an intervention, which was not actually about Solar doing an intervention. It was about Pupa and J.K. Simmons. Oh yeah, J.K. Simmons is like a new robot character they added this season to make fun of sitcoms, adding new characters to the shows that don't do much. So J.K. Simmons doesn't do much. Trying to stop Miss Thing from escaping the house while Solar's do an intervention in the background while fucking Super Mario, who is on a drug bender ever since his movie came out, living this Hollywood lifestyle. That was so funny to me, especially that you didn't even fully see anybody in an intervention, you only heard them and saw their feet and nothing more. So all around, Solars this season are more funny, likable and enjoyable to watch than ever before, and their plots are more creative and way better than Rick and Morty nowadays, at least. I know that's not much of an achievement, but still. The season finale was pretty fun also and really showed how much better this show is nowadays, even if it was good before.
Hi, I'm Sean Gambroni. I used to be on ABC's The Goldbergs.
Holy fuck, it's Sleeping Jimmy. But I know, you know, there's one thing I haven't talked about yet. The fucking wall side plot. Wall is for many people favorite thing from the show, and I completely get why. In season 1, Yamulak started shrinking some people down to the wall in his room, and they started to build their own civilization there, and ever since we see everything that's happening there as a side plot to the show. Sometimes even the entire episodes are about the wall. It was great. A serious realistic depiction of what would people do if they were shrink down and forced to build a whole new civilization with wars over power and all that. It was also very creative work and the show was great at building it. In the last season though, the wall had a pretty good finale and I was thinking that I would prefer if they just stopped the wall subplot there and focused fully on Silvercops 1, which I'm gonna talk about later. And they kinda did it, cause now there's no wall subplot but instead a backyard subplot about people who moved from the wall to live on the backyard through a crack on the wall, which is a welcome change, changing the scenery a bit, focusing on new characters while also having some old. The story of the backyard is about a guy named Gavin trying to transport food to the other side of the backyard, with a girl Sophia joining him while there is a bounty hunter after them. I don't wanna talk about it too much, cause I don't really want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but the side plot is still really great, even if the tone of it isn't that dark as the previous seasons. Sure, there are some deaths and blood, but it's not near the level of how dark it was before, which I liked, cause if you're going to change the scenery, you better change the tone and the vibe as well. Also, there's still many creative things they do with the idea of being shrinked down, and I'm kinda shocked that they are still coming up with the fresh and creative ideas 5 seasons into the side plot. Sophia is also easily my favorite character from this side plot so far. She's a really fun, optimistic character, and I enjoyed her every time she was on screen. And when I thought she couldn't get any better, she turned out to be gay, which was so cool, even if the relationship that she was in came kinda out of fucking nowhere. I'm going to compare the show to Rick and Morty now, cause Richard and Mortimer can't decide if they wanna make serialized or episodic stuff, and they just make fun of serialized stuff in their episodes, but then make serialized episodes and make fun of viewers for being engaged. And even though it got better in season 7, I still think they kinda can strike the balance here. But in Solar Opposites they did something great and balanced serialized and episodic stuff perfectly by making them completely separate, Solars being episodic and the world being serialized, instead of both concepts colliding and making a mess. And both stuff are great, as well as the second side plot in the show, which is Silvercops. Okay, I'll try to make this section very brief, cause there really isn't much to talk about, cause this side plot gets the least amount of screen time, but Silvercops is a side plot they set up in season 3 about a guy that Solar sent to space, and he has bunch of crazy stuff happening there, and stuff happens. Yeah. I'm gonna say that this side plot is also great, focusing on stuff like war and corruption, and I liked how every episode has a very distinct vibe from each other. I also think this is the darkest side plot from the 3 as well, and I'm kinda surprised that they made them all work, even though it's like 3 different shows inside of one sitcom. I don't know, this side plot is just cool. I really don't know what I can say without spoiling it. I'm wondering where the plot is gonna go next, and I highly recommend you watch it too.
My buttholes! They blew up all my buttholes!
Why did he sound like Morty from All People? Concluding this vid quickly, cause I'm really tired. Solar Opposites is a really great show with funny characters, great humor, bunch of creativity, and 2 great side plots. People who say that this show is a Rick and Morty wannabe really don't know what they are talking about, cause this show is really disconnected from the previous show and is completely different, kinda like Futurama and American Dad. And I think that in all of these examples the second shows are way better. So I highly recommend you check out Solar Opposites if you really don't have anything to do, and I hope you enjoy the show. It gets better with every season. Okay, that's the end of the video. I was Elby, good night everybody, and happy birthday you all.